Hello readers by eyes and by ears. This is Mari-chan and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are continuing with the reading of Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know, Chinese title, 魔尊也想知道 by Cyan Wings or 青色羽翼. We're covering chapters 4 through 6 today. I hope you all really enjoy them. We're going to get started. Chapter 4. Two Birds with One Stone, also known as 一石二鸟. Being the protagonist of a novel, Baili Qingmiao's appearance had no flaws. She wore the buttercup yellow dress of the female disciples of Shangqing sect, hair tied in a simple bun with an ordinary multicolored string. A fresh peach blossom was stuck in her hair, and her face held the same gentle flush as its petals. A few strands of hair fell elegantly across her forehead and framed her face, clear and free from makeup. She wore a pair of light yellow bead earrings and was filled with a youthful grace. Wenren E was engrossed with her divine light and hadn't noticed her appearance at all. Yin HANJIANG clutched his sword. In his eyes, this girl who had confronted Wenren E with hostile intent was already dead. Wenzhao finally made it up the stairs. He had known Baili Qingmiao for over 10 years and would have gotten used to it no matter how beautiful she was. After getting to the second floor, all his attention was on Shu Yanyan. With a few coins, he sent one of the waiters to get a doctor who could treat fractures, then crouched near Shu Yanyan's chair and said anxiously, "Don't worry, Miss Shu. I'll make sure to get justice for you." Shu Yanyan. ... No way. Was she the only one who noticed this little Baili Qingmiao girl was really quite beautiful? Do these three men all have eye problems? And the one getting justice is clearly Baili Qingmiao. What is Wenzhao trying to get in on the action for? Even though she was filled with doubts, Shu Yanyan had a strong work ethic and remembered her task: seduce Wenzhao. With effort, she placed her pale hand into Wenzhao's considerably larger hand and said with eyes full of affection, "This maiden's life is as thin as paper. Being able to meet young Master He today is the fortune of 3 lifetimes. Miss Baili, you don't need to make enemies for someone like me. Even if you do, you can't beat them," Shu Yanyan grumbled in her heart. Baili Qingmiao was still too young, barely at foundation establishment. Wenzhao was a bit older, but still only at core formation stage. Wenren E didn't need to act, and Yin HANJIANG didn't need to unsheath his sword. He could kill these 2 Shangqing sect juniors with one finger. Baili Qingmiao was even more furious after hearing Shu Yanyan's words, and she also felt regretful. That day, Wenzhao had wanted to call on Miss Shu, saying that some disciples met her in the small town a few days ago and helped her out. Even if it was a chance encounter, they had to take responsibility until the end. If they helped her but abandoned her halfway, this karma would be on them, and their heavenly tribulations would be harder in the future. Baili Qingmiao was always preoccupied with her own jealousy. She just had yet another spat with her Shishiong Wenzhao about Liu Shijie. They had originally planned to set out at 7 in the morning, but she had delayed them until 9. Her Shishiong's cultivation was much stronger than hers, and he could deduce the ways of heaven better than she could. Maybe today he'd gotten a feeling that something was wrong, and that's why he was anxious to leave early. If she had been just a bit earlier, maybe Miss Shu wouldn't have... While berating herself, Baili Qingmiao heard Shu Yanyan's words and couldn't restrain her anger anymore. She reached out an arm, and the strip of silver silk around her waist, which clashed with the color of her clothes, moved of its own accord. This was the bonded weapon she had refined after attaining foundation establishment, the moonlit frost silk. As it recoiled, it resembled a streak of silver light glittering under the full moon, sublime and beautiful. Shime! Wenzhao was concerned about Shu Yanyan, but he also worried for Baili Qingmiao, who he had taken care of throughout her childhood. Seeing her bring out her bonded weapon, He was anxious she would get hurt if her opponents turned out to be cultivators. He flashed in front of her, the sword on his back rising out of its sheath to float in the air, tip aimed at the two men. "Please don't get hurt for my sake," Yanyan sobbed. All the guests in the cafe had already run off when Yin HANJIANG threw Yanyan, so the only people left on the second floor were the few caught in this confrontation. Yin HANJIANG's expression darkened. If the opposing side had already brought out their weapons, then he might as well. "HANJIANG." Wenren E held Yin HANJIANG's hand on his sword down, gripping it tightly, preventing him from killing the two protagonists in one stroke. Because Yin HANJIANG had lain in a corpse pile for several days in his childhood and still had death chi left in his body, no matter how much he cultivated, his limbs were always chilled, and his hand was currently ice cold. Wenren E sought the Dao in hot-blooded warfare. His body temperature was higher than normal people's, and his hand was burning hot. Wrapped around Yin HANJIANG's hand, it slowly transferred warmth to it. Yin HANJIANG, after coming into contact with Wenren E, didn't dare move. It seemed to him it would be improper to let even the tip of one finger brush against Wenren E's palm. With his hand this cold, he probably had some internal injury, most likely left over from his childhood experience. This was likely also the reason Yin HANJIANG had a hard time advancing in realm, Wenren thought. The treatment happened to be finding the strongest concentration of yang under the heavens, dwelling only in the bitterest frost, the novel's snow flame. Yes, the very snow flame Baili Qingmiao nearly threw her life away to get for Wenzhao. Wenren wasn't interested in taking the protagonist's opportunity for himself. He was practically the #1 cultivator in the world and didn't need those kinds of things. But Yin HANJIANG did need the snow flame. He hadn't concerned himself with Yin HANJIANG for many years, just treating him as another subordinate. If it weren't for that book, he probably would have disregarded him forever. Thinking of how Yin HANJIANG had become so crazed and obsessed after his death, Wenren was emotionally moved and couldn't help but want to treat him a little better. "Seeing as you two are honorable cultivators with profound powers, what need is there to pick a fight over a lowly woman?" Wenren didn't want to make an enemy of his half-master Baili Qingmiao, so decided to back down first. "What did you say?" Baili Qingmiao got angrier at his words and tried to charge, but Wenzhao blocked her. Baili Qingmiao had yet to suffer the cruelties of the novel and had a simple and frank outlook, unable to see these people's hidden depths. Wenzhao already had much more experience with the outside world and could see that Wenren was likely of higher capability than he let on. These two were so calm. What if they were nascent soul stage experts? His palms broke into a sweat, and he transmitted to Baili Qingmiao. "Shimei, they aren't good opponents for us. I'll hold them off for now. You hurry back to the sect for backup." In Wenzhao's heart, Baili Qingmiao was his beloved little Shimei who he was dead set on protecting. Even if he died, he couldn't let his lovely Shimei get hurt. "Shishong!" Baili Qingmiao saw how tense and serious her Shishong was and realized they'd run into high-level opponents. She felt frightened, as well as grateful. While they were transmitting messages and making plans, they were unaware that with how much lower their levels were, the other three in the room could hear them loud and clear. Wenren was a bit confused. He had already backed down, so how come the atmosphere had become even more tense? How should they end this? In the past, what did he usually do in these situations? It seems it was, kill them all? He couldn't even remember the faces of the people who picked fights with him in the past. Luckily, Yanyan was there. As the Venerable's right protector, she immediately saw through his thoughts and dragged her broken body too before the four of them, grabbing the silver piece on the table with a trembling hand. Young Master He, Miss Baili, you don't need to get hurt for my sake. What this master said was right. I am no more than a lowly woman. She bitterly put the silver piece into her lapel herself and choked out, Thank you, honored guests, for your generosity. While saying her lines, she transmitted to Wenren I'm begging you, Venerable, just say, since you know your manners, I'll save the Shangqing sect some face and avoid picking a fight with its juniors. And then go. I'm certain my acting has managed to hook him. Wenren nodded and said woodenly, Since you know your manners, I'll save the Shangqing sect some face and avoid picking a fight with its juniors. The moment he finished speaking, he grabbed Yin HANJIANG and disappeared. Wenzhao and Baili Qingmiao couldn't follow even if they wanted to. Miss Shu! Wenzhao frantically held Shu Yanyan in his arms, who had broken her bones and could only crawl. His heart ached incessantly for her. His cultivation was too low, and he had no way of defeating those two probably nascent soul stage experts. He could only let this frail but self-reliant woman, who was like a lotus flower rising pristine from the mud, humiliate herself to protect him. The fault was on him. Baili Qingmiao looked at Wenzhao holding Shu Yanyan, and, also seeing Shu Yanyan's bleeding legs and her white dress, which had already been stained half crimson, couldn't bring herself to feel jealous. Miss Shu probably won't recover completely, even if treated by a doctor. I'll return to the sect and bring Yao Shishong to help her. Wenzhao nodded. All right, I'll take her home. After Baili Qingmiao left, he picked Shu Yanyan up in his arms and brought her to her run-down thatch hut. Though the inside was shabby, it was clean and neat, and a few pieces of delicate embroidery hung on the walls. You could tell at one glance that the owner was a poor but honest and cultured maiden. Wenzhao set Shu Yanyan carefully on her straw bed. Shu Yanyan had lost too much blood and was hovering on the edge of unconsciousness, her breathing growing faint. She weakly lifted her blood-stained fingers and said softly, Young Master He, this lowly woman should have long since passed. There's no need for you. The moment her cold fingers touched Wenzhao's cheek, Shu Yanyan fainted, leaving a streak of blood down his face. Miss Shu! Wenzhao felt her pulse and found her life force extremely weak. He feared she couldn't wait for his suremate to fetch Yao Shidi. He gritted his teeth and said, Sorry about this. He undid Shu Yanyan's sash. Seeing the silver piece fall off, he felt another pang in his heart. Putting aside the proper relations between men and women, he pressed his palm to the warmth of Shu Yanyan's chest and poured his spiritual energy into her, at the same time taking out a medicine pill. It was true that ordinary people could not withstand a cultivator's medicine and couldn't take them directly. But if a cultivator was willing to use their spiritual power to help break down the medicine and guide it through the body, they could absorb it. The cultivator would lose some strength by doing this. Not often would cultivators waste their hard-earned spiritual essence on an ordinary person. Yao Shidi had drugs that would help an ordinary person take the pills, typically used for new disciples who couldn't absorb qi yet. But he couldn't wait any longer. Wenzhao was at core formation stage and had a comfortable amount of spiritual essence. After his qi completed a circuit in Shu Yanyan's body, he fed the pill to her mouth to mouth, helping her absorb it. After a few minutes, Shu Yanyan was completely healed. Wenzhao embraced her and breathed a small sigh. Only now did he realize he was holding the warm and pliant body in his arms. Why isn't Shirmei back yet? While pretending to be unconscious, Shu Yanyan sent a long-distance transmission to her underlings. You guys, delay Baili Qingmiao for me. I've almost got it. No matter what, don't let her bring that Yao Shishong to wreck my plans. No need to send your subordinates. I have delayed Baili Qingmiao. A familiar deep voice sounded by Shu Yanyan's ear. Shu Yanyan... ... Venerable, how come you want to do it yourself again? This subordinate doesn't wish to trouble you. Nothing good could come from you being involved. Though she shed tears on her heart, she was fully in control on the surface. She opened her eyes with a soft cry and, finding herself in Wenzhao's lap, with her clothes... She exclaimed weakly, and her face turned bright red. Elsewhere, Baili Qingmiao once again brought out the moonlit frost silk, her expression grim, facing off against Wenren E and Yin HANJIANG. Wenren E forbade Yin HANJIANG from acting and, extending a finger, tapped the silver silk once lightly. Baili Qingmiao's bonded weapon quietly returned to within her body, and she found out she was unable to exert a hint of spiritual power. Baili Qingmiao finally realized the extent of her opponent's strength. She had grown up in Shang-Qing's sect and not really traveled the world before. As a cultivator, she had beaten countless Wulin martial artists, but she never expected such hidden masters to be mingling among the populace. Her Shishong was far more experienced and had probably already seen through these people's true depths, yet he still stood his ground in front of her. Her Shishong treated her so well, willing to risk his life for her, yet she was always throwing tantrums and distrusting him. Her behavior was altogether too ungrateful. "If you want to kill me, then go ahead. If I even flinch, I'm not worthy of being a disciple of Shang-Qing's sect," Baili Qingmiao said resolutely. Wenren E didn't know what twists and turns her thoughts were taking, and said evenly, "Miss Baili, don't misjudge us. I purposefully sought you out, as I have a request of you." He raised the hand, and in the mountain wilderness, 3 elegant chairs appeared. They didn't come from a storage item on him, but were transparent chairs condensed from the spiritual energy of the mountains. Maya Hana cultivators could connect to the heavens and the earth and manifest their will with a thought. Oftentimes, cultivators at this stage wouldn't lightly use their magic weapons and could create weapons out of ambient spiritual energy to attack their opponents. Wenren E made a gesture for Baili Qingmiao to help herself. After a trembling Baili Qingmiao sat down, he sat as well. Usually he would sit first, but he had to show the proper respect to his half-master, so he offered the seat to Baili Qingmiao first. One of the 3 chairs was for Yin HANJIANG, but Yin HANJIANG didn't sit, instead standing behind Wenren E without a word. Wenren E didn't make any demands to Baili Qingmiao. "Miss Baili," he said, "you can probably tell that, with our strength, we've no need to trouble an ordinary person. Earlier, I had seen you walk by downstairs and merely threw down an object to catch your attention." Baili Qingmiao was furious, but the people she was facing were too powerful. Holding herself back with fists clenched, she said, "That was a person, not an object." "Really?" Wenren E flicked a finger, and an ant crawling across the ground was whisked up by a gust of wind and landed on Baili Qingmiao's knee. "What difference between this and that?" he said indifferently. The ant struggled to crawl on Baili Qingmiao's leg. She lifted it with one hand and set it on the ground. "They are different," she said in a shaky voice. "And ants are also guiltless." "In your life, have you eaten meat?" Wenren E asked. Baili Qingmiao didn't say anything. Cultivators past foundation establishment could go without food, sustaining themselves on the qi of the environment. She established her foundation a year ago and had grown up eating mortal food for the previous 17 years. She could only shake her head and say, "That's not the same." As a cultivator, you should know that all life under heaven goes to the same destination, and all things have their own awareness. There is no distinction between man and other living beings, Wenren E said. We as cultivators absorb the spiritual energy of the environment. Do you know how many lives that energy could have given rise to? Shang-Qing sect has occupied a spiritual mountain for centuries. Do you know how many unique creatures and spiritual beings that mountain sustained in ancient times? Why is it that now not one is left? Because human beings cultivating on the mountain have seized the spiritual energy. That mountain is no longer able to give rise to spiritual beings. Baili Qingmiao had been a cultivator for only a short time and had no way to refute Wenren E's words. Her heart was in disorder, feeling like her old worldview had been toppled. Her spiritual essence ran wild out of her control, and sharp pains stabbed in her internal organs like knives. Wenren wasn't willing to just watch his half-master have a chi deviation, so changed his angle and said, "There's no need to blame yourself for this. Humanity is currently the chief of all living things, and this was also decided by fate. In the age of gods and demons, humanity suffered endlessly. Any beast of the land or air, or deadly flower or tree, could treat human beings as its prey, refine their bodies into magic tools, or absorb their souls. Now, the fact that humanity has the upper hand can be seen as nothing more than the revolution of fortunes." Hearing this, Baili Qingmiao's expression eased. The things that bewildered her in her mind seemed to be resolved, and her mental state relaxed quite a bit. She closed her eyes to contemplate in silence. After a quarter hour, she opened her eyes, stood, and cupped a fist toward Wenren. "Thanks to this master for the guidance." Wenren waved a hand. "It was hardly anything. I just randomly said some truths of heaven. The fact that you were able to comprehend shows that you're naturally suited to cultivate the path of indifference. In your future cultivation, don't choose the wrong path." Baili Qingmiao had just enlightened to a principle of heaven, and the expression in her eyes was currently far from that of the most innocent young girl she had been. Underneath her long lashes, her eyes were dispassionate, yet held compassion, and though she was looking at that ant, she also seemed to be looking at nothing at all. Wenren looked upon her with approval, but in the next instant, Baili Qingmiao's eyes brightened. Coming back to her senses, she said, "Shushong and Miss Shu are still waiting for the medicine." Her eyes twinkled like stars, resembling once more the love-struck girl from before. "No need for concern. That woman is fine," Wenren said. "I came to you because I needed you to help me retrieve something." "Senior just guided me in my cultivation. Baili is deeply grateful. If there's anything I can do to help my senior, I would not hesitate to do so," Baili Qingmiao said. "I am looking for the spiritual treasure called the Snow Flame to help my friend recover from his injury," said Wenren. Yin HANJIANG looked at Wenren in astonishment. "I have heard of the Snow Flame from my master before. It appears in the 1,000-mile ice plains, and no one knows its location. Any cultivator below core formation stage who enters would almost certainly die. Senior, your cultivation is profound. Can this junior really be of use?" Baili Qingmiao said in confusion. "The Snow Flame is fated to be yours," said Wenren. "Other people can't take it. We can only have it with your permission. Everything has its predetermined outcome, and one cannot obtain everything just by having power." Actually, they could just follow Baili Qingmiao, and after she obtained the treasure, take it from her. This would be the way of the demonic cultivator. But Wenren couldn't steal something from his master, and he didn't want to do something as lowly as rob a person of their fortune either. He wanted to make an exchange. "I can help you ascend to divinity. I can help you comprehend the Tao. I can assist you in obtaining the things you want, all in return for the Snow Flame." Wenren thought this was a fine idea which could repay his debt to his master and help Yin HANJIANG at the same time, and secretly approved of himself for his own quick thinking. Behind his back, and unbeknownst to him, Yin HANJIANG's eyes were faintly rimmed in red. Yin HANJIANG bowed his head, hiding his eyes, and spoke hoarsely. "Venerable." Wenren with a sweep of gold-embroidered black sleeve, cut off Yin HANJIANG's words. He transmitted to him, "This Venerable is giving it to you, so you're not allowed to refuse." Chapter 5. Brilliant plan, Venerable. Wenren was an unfeeling man. The book's description of him was that he had no eyes for anyone on earth except Baili Qingmiao. He would take the moon and the stars from the heavens for Baili Qingmiao. A character like that attracted hordes of fans, and every time there was a scene in which he was alone with her, the readers would all be engrossed in cheering them on. One of their typical interactions was, the night Wenzhao was to be married to the violet spirit pavilion master, Baili Qingmiao was injured and accompanied by Wenren E as she gazed at the night sky filled with stars. She pointed at the stars of the cowherd and weaver girl separated by the Milky Way and said, "Such a happy couple. Why did they need to be torn apart?" A single tear slid down her pale face. The bright-eyed and smiling young girl from the beginning had long since vanished. Even though cultivators almost never aged after foundation establishment, and she still looked the same age of 18, her heart had grown much older. Wenren E raised a hand and covered Baili Qingmiao's eyes. "Before I become a god, don't look at the stars." "Why?" Baili Qingmiao said in confusion. "It's said that when a cultivator ascends to godhood, they can change the stars and galaxies to their liking. I will bring the cowherd star to the other side of the Milky Way." Baili Qingmiao smiled and nodded. "Okay, until you become a god, I won't look at the night sky again." In the end, Wenren E died without being able to ascend to godhood, but he fulfilled his promise to Baili Qingmiao nonetheless. Baili Qingmiao was able to regain her divine essence thanks to the arrangements Wenren E had made prior to his death. And the moment she merged with the divine essence, the heavens trembled and stars shifted, and the cowherd and weaver girl were brought to each other's sides. The power unleashed by the changing stars instantly turned a continent into an ocean. This was the power of a primordial god. The moment the goddess of calamities reclaimed her place, chaos was unleashed across the world. When Baili Qingmiao came back to her senses and saw that she had destroyed an entire continent, she thought back to her Shishong's teachings and the words of that ascended god in her past life. She didn't want to be a god, to disrupt the stars so casually, so she abandoned her divinity. The cowherd and weaver girl didn't return to their original places, though. They were finally together, like the two protagonists in the end. Regarding this plotline, the readers discussed like crazy that it was Wenren E's love for the female lead even after his own death, saying that if this man wanted to pamper someone, he would really go to any length. He wouldn't let her suffer any grievance. Even if he died, he would be there for her until the end. Wenren E had no reaction when he read this part and the discussion about it, because he knew how fickle he really was. Xuanyuan's sect had counted countless subordinates who would wholeheartedly dedicate themselves to him, but Wenren E never paid them any mind. He knew this dedication was built on the power he possessed that could crush all opposition. If someone else had the same power, those people would show the same kind of devotion. The target of this devotion wasn't Wenren E, it was the strength of the Mahayana stage cultivator. As for familial bonds, Wenren E had already set them aside when he entered the Dao. 300 years had passed, and there was no one with his bloodline left on the earth. What he had with Baili Qingmiao was the workings of karma and heavenly law, and couldn't be counted as love. He was alone in this world, and there was nothing in the world that would tie him to it after he left. Just that after the reading, an odd feeling had grown inside him toward Yin HANJIANG. Yin HANJIANG had toward him a debt of life, of being raised by him, and of being taught by him. After his death, whether Yin HANJIANG sought vengeance for him or carried out his final wishes, it was all what he naturally ought to do. Even if his body was broken and his bones were shattered for Wenren E, it would be reasonable. But Yin HANJIANG had to choose such a wretched way to show his devotion. While reading, Wenren E had never taken Yin HANJIANG to be the ghost mask, and when the truth was revealed, at the moment the female lead saw the mask in Yin HANJIANG's bundle, it wasn't just Baili Qingmiao who was shocked. Wenren E was also shaken by it. At one point in the book, one of the female villains got a magic item that could change one's appearance in a way undetectable to others. She took Baili Qingmiao's appearance to trick Wenzhao, but got captured by Yin HANJIANG instead. Without a protagonist's plot armor, she naturally got refined into lamp oil. Yin HANJIANG had taken off the ghost mask and come to Wenren E's cenotaph. Lighting the ever-burning lamp, he entered the tomb and, clutching Wenren E's black robe covered with dark gold patterns, peacefully closed his eyes. That sentence sent a chill through Wenren E. It seemed as though the next moment Yin HANJIANG would, while hugging Wenren E's robe, self-destruct his nascent soul to kill himself. However, at that point, the tracking device that Yin HANJIANG had placed on the female lead lit up. He saw that she was still alive and had run into trouble again. Yin HANJIANG stared at the image of her that was displayed in the air before him, tilting his head slightly. Then he rubbed his cheek along Wenren E's robe, folded it, and replaced it neatly in the tomb. He quietly walked out of the tomb. Without using spiritual energy to protect his hand, he smothered the ever-burning lamp with his palm. Next, with the sweep of his arm, it shattered against a nearby boulder, shards scattering across the ground, lamp oil slowly spilling into the dirt. Yin HANJIANG looked at his singed palm and suddenly burst into laughter. As the laughter went on, he placed the hand over his mouth, making painful, muffled noises as if it was taking all the strength he had to restrain his emotions. He bowed his head, staying that way until Venus rose in the sky. At the darkest moment, before daybreak, Yin HANJIANG lifted his head and placed the ghost mask on his face. From behind the mask, words came through gritted teeth. Baili Qingmiao. This whole section made readers' hairs stand on end. Wenren E, as one of the story's protagonists, felt an indescribable emotion. He could accept Yin HANJIANG dying for him, but he was unable to understand Yin HANJIANG going mad because of him. To go from perfect calm to extreme mania, what kind of suffering did he go through? When Yin HANJIANG rubbed his cheek against Wenren E's robe, it was like against his heart. Wenren E, looking up from the book to Yin HANJIANG himself, felt like he was properly seeing the subordinate of his for the first time. He felt like what he had done for Yin HANJIANG wasn't worth such heartfelt repayment, so he ought to treat Yin HANJIANG a little better. Yanyan wasn't planning to suck Wenzhao into an empty husk this time around, and was even going to use her technique to help him improve his cultivation so he wouldn't need the snow flame. It was a perfect chance to use it for Yin HANJIANG. Wenren E had been the Xuanyuan sect master for many years and had obtained quite a large collection. He dug around in his Tianquan sleeve and gave Baili Qingmiao some materials, pills, and magic items that were suitable for her cultivation stage, and a flame feather cloak to protect her from the cold air of the ice plains, so the protagonist didn't freeze to death. I can't take all this. Baili Qingmiao looked at the items that were rapidly piling into a small mound, her face reddening as she waved her hands. Wenren E also took out a simple hairpin, which was a storage item suitable for holding the things he had provided. Giving Baili Qingmiao no opportunity to refuse the gifts, he grabbed Yin HANJIANG and left. Baili Qingmiao held the hairpin in her hand and spaced out for a bit, staring at the sky in the direction Wenren E had disappeared. With a stamp of her foot, she said, "Shuxiong, Mishu!" She quickly stored all the gifts in the jade hairpin, placed it inside her robe, and flew at a slow pace toward Shanqing's sect. Disciples leaving Shanqing's sect all took with them an emergency talisman. If they shattered the jade talisman, nearby disciples would be alerted to come and save them. Baili Qingmiao could have used this method to call for help, but these talismans were meant to be used in matters of life and death, not what everyone wanted. If she really broke one and called over a pack of disciples only for it to turn out to be no urgent matter, she would earn the disapproval of her seniors. After Nascent Soul stage, she would be able to create her own communication talismans. But Baili Qingmiao hadn't reached that stage yet, so she had to go up the mountain herself. Meanwhile, Yanyan slept on a straw bed, her face rosy and one of her shoulders bared. Wenzhao, standing next to the bed with his shirt open, spaced out for a moment, then pulled a simple blanket over Yanyan. His action woke her. Yanyan opened her eyes, and when meeting Wenzhao's eyes, her face reddened, and she grabbed her clothes and pulled them over herself carefully. She wrung her hands and said in a soft voice, "Young Master He, you don't need to worry. I know you have feelings for Miss Baili. This was unintentional. I had been injured, so young Master He was just helping me recover." Wenzhao was perfectly clear whether or not it had been to help her recover. He stared at Yanyan, simultaneously wondering how he could have done something like this and reminiscing over how it had felt earlier. There was even a bit of tenderness in his eyes as he looked toward her. I'll help you buy a house. This place is too run down. It's not a suitable place to live," Wenzhao said dully. Yanyan cursed men out in her mind a few times, but shook her head with a slight smile. "Young Master He, are you treating me as a prostitute? If I had wanted to sell my body, why would I wait until now?" Wenzhao stared dumbly for a few moments. "I am a lowly woman, and I do not mind how others see me. But young Master He is such a noble character. How could he be a man who pays for pleasure?" Yanyan said, turning the subject around as she looked sadly at Wenzhao. She wouldn't accept money not only because of her own morals, but out of concern for Wenzhao. Such a thoughtful and considerate person. "But I truly have disrespected you, miss." Wenzhao reached out and brushed a strand of Yanyan's hair behind her ear. He accidentally touched her blushing cheek, and his heart skipped a beat. Yanyan smiled warmly. "Isn't it often mentioned in stories that one should give oneself to repay a life debt? Young Master He is a noble hero. I am honored to be with you." Her words gradually smoothed away Wenzhao's regrets. He thought about all the times he'd helped Miss Shu. This woman didn't have any capabilities and could probably only use this method to repay him. Besides, back then, with her warm and supple body in his lap and her wholehearted trust in him, what men would be able to hold back? And it's not like she was a woman from a brothel. They both had feelings for each other. So wasn't it a good thing? The only problem was Baili Qingmiao. What should he do about her? But wasn't the fact that the situation had progressed this far because of Baili Qingmiao taking her sweet time? If she came back earlier, he wouldn't have had to forego propriety with a woman in order to save her. The more Wenzhao thought, the more he felt that he didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't know how he would explain it to his beloved Shimei. He really did like Baili Qingmiao. They were childhood friends, and Wenzhao had taken care of her since she was just a 7 or 8-year-old child. He had watched her grow from a little girl plump with baby fat to a beautiful young woman. Yanyan couldn't come between such deep feelings. Yanyan didn't want to get between them either. She placed a soft hand on Wenzhao's shoulder and said understandingly, "Worry not, young master. This matter stays between you and me. No one else will hear it." Right. Wasn't it fine as long as no one else knew? Miss Shu was a smart girl. She got it. Wenzhao, his inner conflict now resolved, embraced Yanyan. God. Yanyan, after arranging her clothes properly, fell asleep again, acting like she'd been put through too much and was exhausted. Wenzhao, looking at her sleeping face, in the end still felt his heart move for her. After staring for a moment, Wenzhao remembered he had violated his body of true yang. His teacher always reminded them that they should avoid dual cultivating with anyone until they reached nascent soul stage, or they could easily harm their cultivation. Wenzhao hurriedly checked himself over and found that his cultivation had not weakened and instead risen significantly, from the 7th level of course stage right to the 9th. Yanyan had cultivated to the 6th level of void boundary through this method. Raising a core formation stage junior's level was as easy as breathing for her. She had also absorbed the lightning energy from inside Wenzhao's body and that mysterious power he possessed, so she benefited quite a lot herself. She was just waiting for Wenzhao to go so she could cultivate. Why would his cultivation increase? Wenzhao was very confused. He looked at Shu Yanyan and thought back to a book he had read in the sect library on dual cultivation. At the time, he discovered he was in love with his Shimei, so went looking for methods on dual cultivating. That book had also said that one should not dual cultivate before nascent soul stage, but with 2 exceptions, those with a 9 yang body and a 9 yin body. If a woman with a 9 yin body were to dual cultivate with a man, even if she was just an ordinary person, she could still raise her cultivation and provide many benefits. Could Miss Shu have a 9 yin body? While Wenzhao was letting his thoughts wander, Baili Qingmiao finally arrived with Yao Wendan. "Sorry I was late, Shishong," she said, out of breath. Wenzhao patted her head and said, "No worries, Shimei. Miss Shu is already okay." As it turned out, Yao Wendan made this trip for no reason. Seeing Shu Yanyan sleeping on the bed with a rosy complexion, Yao Wendan felt suspicious and said, "How did she recover?" Wenzhao didn't want him to check Shu Yanyan and said in a low voice, "We shouldn't talk here. Let's go outside first." They left the thatch hut, and Wenzhao explained that the situation had been urgent and Miss Shu had been coughing up blood and near death, so he helped her take some medicine of the kind cultivators used. He even took out his pill bottle to show that it was missing 1 pill. Can an ordinary person endure that kind of medicine? Yao Wendan sniffed at the pill bottle. "These pills are for foundation establishment cultivators. An ordinary person's meridians wouldn't be able to bear such strong spiritual energy. These meridians would rupture if they died." "I used my spiritual essence to help her absorb it," Wenzhao said, putting it simply. But Yow When-dahn thought about the procedure to help someone absorb medicine. He mainly studied refining medicinal elixirs and knew clearly that this procedure required skin-to-skin contact. "But what?" Baili Qingmiao said innocently. She was young, and she hadn't learned about this yet. Wenzhao fixed his gaze on Yao Wendan. Yao Wendan got his intent and said, "Well, I just worried Shishong didn't understand enough about medicine and hadn't treated her properly. But I see now that Miss Shu is completely healed, so there's no issue." Baili Qingmiao relaxed at that and wanted to go see Miss Shu. Wenzhao had said that any danger was past, and an unmarried man and woman shouldn't be together alone, so let Baili Qingmiao go in on her own. Once she entered the house, Yao Wendan raised an eyebrow and elbowed Wenzhao. He said with a smirk, "Shishong, have you done something improper?" "The situation was urgent, so I had to do something on the spot. I covered my eyes at the time," Wenzhao said. "He acted exceedingly righteous." Yao Wendan said, with some lingering doubt, "Then why didn't you tell Shimei earlier?" Wenzhao sighed and shook his head. "It's not like you don't know Shimei's attitude. She even raised a fuss when Liu Shimei came to me to ask about a technique. I'm everyone's senior. It's my duty to help my juniors with their cultivation. If our master is busy with other stuff, it's up to me to fill in. I even taught you your first techniques." "Why wouldn't I help Liu Shimei?" "That's all true," Yao Wendan said. "Baili Qingmiao is good in so many aspects, just that she gets jealous too easily." "That's right. And it wouldn't be right to Miss Shu to tell people, so let's just shut it down here. A human life is invaluable. What I did is still a good deed." Yao Wendan bought Wenzhao's words. After Baili Qingmiao confirmed that Shu Yanyan was fine and left the hut completely oblivious, they returned to Shan-Qing's sect. After they left, Shu Yanyan got up, rubbed at her skin, and kicked the straw bed, exclaiming, "Ugh! This straw is too prickly. How can anyone sleep?" Just now, why didn't you tell Baili Qingmiao what you and Wenzhao did? A voice spoke in the thatch hut. Yanyan looked up and saw that the Venerable and Protector Yeen had appeared in the hut at some point. She chuckled and said, Venerable, you're a hard-hearted man. You don't know anything about women. How could you understand how these self-important false gentlemen think? Those men, in bed, they'll say all the sweet words for free. But after they put their clothes back on, they'll act like they don't know you. If I'd said it, the next day, Wenzhao would have said that I'd bewitched him and blamed me for everything. Wenren E thought about it. It really did happen like that in the book. Wenzhao clung to the story that Yanyan had abducted him, and there was no way he could fight off the right protector of a demonic sect. Then when will you tell her? Wenren E asked. He wanted Baili Qingmiao to hurry up and see Wenzhao's true face so as to more quickly lead her to cultivate the path of indifference and ascend. After she successfully merged with the divine essence, Wenren E could consider his debt repaid. We need to wait a while, Yanyan said, leaning against the wall. After Wenzhao leaves, it'll only be a few days before he comes looking for me again. After getting a taste, what man wouldn't want a second? And I can even help his cultivation improve. As time passes and things develop, he really wouldn't be able to get me out of his head, and one time might have been coercion. But could a second and third also be coercion? In the future, even if he tries to make excuses, he wouldn't be able to gloss over all of that. She frowned. Though, didn't Venerable want me to win over Wenzhao and play the long game to get intel for the Great Sect War? Wenren E nodded. That's also necessary. But when it comes to Baili Qingmiao, it's better to have her sooner leave her sect and switch to cultivating the path of indifference. Huh? Yanyan didn't get it. What did the Venerable mean by that? If he was interested in Baili Qingmiao, he ought to get her to betray her sect and go down the demonic path, then find some way to make her his. Why the path of indifference? Just do what you're supposed to, Wenren E said. Then I need a few subordinates for luring away Baili Qingmiao to give Wenzhao more chances. Every time they leave the mountain, they're joined at the hip. It's way too hard to find an opportunity. No need. I'll keep Baili Qingmiao away for a few days, Wenren E said. You? You personally? Again? Yanyan's expression stiffened. Wenren E raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem? Not at all, Yanyan said with a weak laugh. Yin HANJIANG saw that she didn't trust Wenren E and said unhappily, The Venerable sent Baili Qingmiao to retrieve the snow flame. We'll be able to obtain a treasure and make it easy for you to seduce Wenzhao at the same time. It's 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's it. Yanyan's respect grew and she knelt on one knee. Brilliant plan, Venerable. Wenren E nodded expressionlessly. Chapter 6. 1,000-Mile Ice Plains. Baili Qingmiao didn't feel comfortable taking the pile of treasures Wenren E had left her. She returned to Shangqing's sect, and after meditating for a night, found that her level had actually increased from the 2nd level of foundation establishment all the way to the 7th, an abnormally big leap. She assumed it was the help of those 2 experts' guidance. Baili Qingmiao had been taught since childhood that the gratitude of a drop of water should be repaid by a spring. She couldn't accept such a benefit for free, so met with her master and said she wanted to leave the mountain to gain experience. Baili Qingmiao's master, Elder Qinrong, was a female cultivator, and most of the female cultivators were under her. Shangqing's sect didn't forbid its disciples from dual cultivating and just warned them that dual cultivation should only be done after nascent soul stage. The first reason was to give irresolute disciples something to look forward to. If someone had a goal, they would put out more effort. The second reason was that after nascent soul stage, a cultivator's emotional maturity would rise and the impulses of youth would be weakened. Only true and deep desires would remain. So it was also to help disciples know their own hearts so they wouldn't sabotage themselves while still young. The Shang-Qing sect believed that it was better to restrict something than to forbid it. Instead of banning disciples from romantic relations, it was better to properly guide them to avoid making them want to rebel. This regulation worked quite well. Some disciples dedicated themselves to cultivating hard so they could be together properly with the person they loved. The whole sect was full of motivation to advance. Elder Qinrong, hearing that her favorite young disciple had resolved to set out alone to train, showed a gratified smile. She patted Baili Qingmiao's hand and said warmly, "And I was worried that you were too reluctant to leave your Shishong to travel alone." "Oh my God, Master!" Baili Qingmiao blushed, hugging Elder Qinrong's arm. Elder Qinrong saw that her little disciple had finally grown up and felt relieved. She nodded and said, "It's good that you're motivated. You're a rare talent. Back then, if I hadn't held you back, thinking it was too early, you probably would have built your foundation at 12 or 13. After foundation establishment, your body won't grow until nascent soul stage. Would you have wanted to have a 12 or 13-year-old body for the next 200 years of cultivation?" Baili Qingmiao was a bit embarrassed. Back then, she was young, okay? She didn't understand anything. If she looked 12 or 13, Shishong taking her places would look like a father with his daughter. That would be awful. Elder Qinrong told Baili Qingmiao that she shouldn't go anywhere too dangerous and to immediately break her jade messaging talisman if she ran into trouble, to think before acting and not to show off. After cautioning her on a great many things, she also gave her a protective magic item, which could block one full power attack from a deity transformation stage cultivator. After she felt she had covered everything, she finally sent Baili Qingmiao with her own seal down to the administration hall to make a record. Shang-Qing's sect had many disciples, and they needed to keep a clear record of everything. These kinds of trips usually lasted half a year to a year, and if Baili Qingmiao wasn't back by then, the elders would set out to find her whereabouts, so it was also for the disciples' safety. Wenzhao was the chief disciple and also held several posts at the administration hall. He was currently on duty, and when receiving Baili Qingmiao's seal of authorization, he stared at her for a moment. "Shimei, you want to leave the mountain alone?" "Yeah, I can't be Shishong's shadow forever," Baili Qingmiao said with a smile. "I want to quickly reach nascent soul, so I can slay demons and defeat evil alongside Shishong and become renowned in the cultivation world." "Is that so? Good. That's good." Wenzhao had had erotic dreams all night and was a bit distracted, his mind feeling blank. He originally felt a bit guilty when he saw his Shimei, but when hearing she wanted to leave, he didn't feel reluctant and actually relaxed a bit. Baili Qingmiao didn't notice Wenzhao's inattentiveness. After making her record, she lit a soul lamp, which was what all traveling disciples were meant to do. If something happened to them, the lamp would go out, and people at Shang-Qing's sect would immediately know. After reluctantly bidding farewell to Wenzhao, Baili Qingmiao left the mountain and came to the tea house where she had previously met Wenren E. Wenren E had already made the arrangements with Baili Qingmiao. Seeing her arrive, he nodded and said, "You start flying. We'll catch up later." At Baili Qingmiao's speed, it would take her at least 7 days to get to the ice plains. Yin HANJIANG could get there in 4 hours, and Wenren E in less than 10 minutes. "I'd rather return these things to you. It's not right for me to take them." Baili Qingmiao took off the storage hairpin and placed it on the table. "I've kept the flame feather cloak to protect myself in the ice plains. Due to Senior's guidance, I've risen much in cultivation. Since you've already given me something, it's only natural I complete a task for you. I can't accept more on top of that." Wenren raised an eyebrow. "All things are guided by karma, and the things I've given you are also due to that. You're just being repaid, not incurring a debt, so don't be concerned." "Oh?" Baili Qingmiao said, surprised. "I have a karmic connection to this senior, but I grew up at Shang-Qing sect. I've never met you before. Karmic relations are not limited to this life, and not necessarily incurred by you. They may be from past lives or your blood relatives, Wenren said. I'm not only going to give you these, I'm going to assist your cultivation, help you become a god, help you realize all your desires. Baili Qingmiao tugged at her sash and said bashfully, I don't dare think about becoming a god, but I do have a desire. I want to quickly reach nascent soul stage so I can... She trailed off midway, but Wenren could guess where she was going. Disappointed, but unable to do anything about it, he gulped down a mouthful of ordinary tea without a hint of spiritual energy and waved her off. You get going. We'll meet at the entrance of the 1,000-mile ice plains in 7 days. Okay. Baili Qingmiao left the tea house, leaving the hairpin on the table. After she left, Yin HANJIANG used his sword to draw an array in the air, casting a simple illusion around the two. Anyone looking from the outside would see the two of them sipping tea and eating while chatting idly, but they could do whatever they wanted within the illusion. Wenren frowned and said, Protector Yeen, what's your desire? This subordinate is the Venerable sword. While the sword exists, I exist. When the sword breaks, I die, Yin HANJIANG said. He didn't even blink, seeming to say these words instinctively without thinking about them, like he had replayed them many times in his heart, and it had already become an obsession. You certainly are boring. Shu Yanyan walked out of a corner, leaning against Yan Hanjing's shoulder. She said, A high position, unmatched power, good-looking guys. Girls. Which one of these wouldn't people desire? Am I not right, Venerable? Wenren said expressionlessly. I never thought about it. Shu Yanyan. Wenren and Yin HANJIANG were like two lumps of steel, and it brought an unhappy memory to Shu Yanyan's mind. It was 80 years ago when Wenren and Yin HANJIANG fought their way into the main hall of Xuanyuan's sect, and Wenren dueled the old sect master, killing him after 3 days and 3 nights of combat. Yin HANJIANG stayed by him for all that time, preventing anyone else from approaching. Yin HANJIANG was only at the first level of body unity, but he wielded a demonic sword which he had forcibly fused with, and could unleash a frightening amount of power in an instant. He would kill man or god who got in his way, and many void boundary experts were too scared to approach a mere body unity stage opponent. But demonic cultivators didn't just fight face to face, and had quite diverse methods. Altar Master Yuan had Shu Yanyan go up and seduce Yin HANJIANG, and she wasn't just a pretty face. If a void boundary expert were to unleash all her charm, anyone under void boundary stage, no matter if male or female, old or young, would all become Shu Yanyan's servants, and even men above void boundary would have a hard time resisting. Dealing with a body unity opponent would be a piece of cake. So Shu Yanyan approached full of confidence and got several teeth knocked out by Yin HANJIANG. For over a year, her teeth were full of gaps and she couldn't talk properly. And it wasn't until Wenren reinstated the sect's previous positions did she dare to heal them. That battle essentially gave Shu Yanyan a fear of Wenren and Yin HANJIANG. They seemed to have no feelings. Wenren cultivated the path of slaughter, and when he saw a beautiful woman, his first thought would be what kind of difference was there to fight a woman versus a man. And as for Yin HANJIANG, he actually seemed to deeply believe he was an ice-cold sword, blind and heartless, not caring if what was in front of him was a man, woman, or beast, so long as it wasn't Wenren E. Yin HANJIANG's world was divided into Wenren E and not Wenren E. And Shu Yanyan occupied the not category. Over 80 years had passed, but whenever Shu Yanyan saw Yin HANJIANG, her teeth would ache, and this man nearly became her inner demon. But she was a woman who rose to challenges, so how could she let something like this hold her back? Just as Wenren assumed the loyalty of his subordinates was dependent on his own overwhelming power, but they constantly desired to drag him down from that altar. Yanyan was that kind of ambitious woman. She walked in front of Wenren E, her voice soft like an enticement from the abyss. Venerable, you already have power and status, so don't you want something more? That Baili Qingmiao is such a good innocent girl. Should this subordinate coax her to your side for you? Unbeknownst to Yanyan, when she said these words, Yin HANJIANG's face paled and he stiffened against the wall, like an emotionless puppet. Yanyan knew she didn't have the power to charm the Venerable, but that was fine. If Wenren E was tempted, his heart would be moved, and she would have a chance. Yanyan. Wenren E placed a hand on Yanyan's scalp, but the action was without a slight hint of warmth, and the pressure was as if he was looking to crush Yanyan's skull with one hand. I approve of my subordinate's ambition, and so allow you to do what you want, and I also don't care about you placing your weird notions on me. The Venerable is magnanimous. Yanyan was too scared to breathe. But don't overestimate yourself, Wenren E said in a heavier voice. Use your ambition for productive things. I'm still looking to the Great Sect War as a chance to increase my cultivation. In the path of slaughter, one advanced in combat. At Wenren E's current realm, mortal warfare could not have any effect for him. Only a war that affected the entire cultivation world would be enough. The righteous sects were taking the offensive this time, and Wenren E planned to use it as an opportunity to break through his realm. Yes, Yanyan said, her head in splitting pain and a few streams of blood running down her forehead. Her expectations that had just been raised came crashing down. Wenren E saw that the lesson was sufficient and released her. Yin HANJIANG handed over a handkerchief, which Wenren E used to wipe the blood from his fingertips before tossing on the floor. Yanyan didn't dare to wipe her blood, and said with it dripping down her face, "This subordinate will put every effort towards getting information. The day the Venerable returns from the 1,000-mile ice plains will be the day the Great Sect War begins." "One more thing," Wenren E said. "Do your best to make Wenzhao obsessed with you. I want Baili Qingmiao to give up on that man." "Understood." Yanyan bowed her head, looking like a female ghost with her hair loose. After waiting for a while and hearing nothing, she lifted her head and found the two men had left. She plopped down on the floor in a cold sweat, hand over her heart. After she treated her injuries, she saw from the second floor Wenzhao walked by below, in the direction of her home. Yanyan chuckled coldly. Men. So impatient. Little Shermay's just left, and here you are. Can't even wait a few days. But these kinds of men still gave you a sense of accomplishment. As for the Venerable and his left protector, Yanyan shook her head, chased the memories of her painful experiences from her mind, and focused her attention on Wenzhao. Wenren E brought Yin HANJIANG to the entrance of the 1,000-mile ice plains. Seeing Yin HANJIANG was very pale, he grasped his hand and found that it felt like that of a frozen corpse. "Better for me to enter alone," he said. "Your body is chilled and can't take the cold air. Wait at the entrance for me." Yin HANJIANG looked toward the boundless expanse of ice and shook his head. "It's said to be an extremely dangerous place where wandering immortals are secluded. This subordinate insists on following the Venerable." "I order you to wait here," Wenren E said. "This subordinate does not wish to deceive the Venerable. When the Venerable goes, this subordinate will follow." He was stubborn like an unbending sword, and his honesty actually managed to move Wenren E. Wenren E sliced open his wrist with the finger and brought it in front of Yin HANJIANG. "The path of slaughter may be rejected by the righteous sects, but it is a path of true yang, the hot blood of combat, the stirring emotions, the ruthless spirit of hundreds of thousands of men meeting in battle that leads even vengeful ghosts to keep their distance. All fills this Venerable's blood with yang energy. If you drink this blood, this Venerable's power will be able to protect you on your way through the ice plains." "Venerable, you're hurt. This subordinate isn't worthy." A hint of pain showed in the depths of Yin HANJIANG's emotionless eyes. That demonic sword is associated with coldness and Yeen. Do you want this Venerable to have to save you in the ice plains because you cannot bring out the full power of merging with the sword? Besides, whether or not you're worthy is up to this Venerable, Wenren said. If you're not willing, this Venerable will seal your power and leave you at the ice plains entrance. Crimson blood dripped slowly from Wenren-E's wrist. Yin HANJIANG shut his eyes in pain for a moment, then opened them. He gritted his teeth, then brought his lips to Wenren-E's wrist and sipped a mouthful of warm blood. A current of warmth flowed into his dantian. Wenren-E used spiritual energy to stop the flow of blood and, squeezing Yin HANJIANG's finger, felt it was finally gaining some warmth. He nodded, satisfied. Yin HANJIANG's expression looked a little strained. He rubbed his warm chest and felt a bit off balance in his heart. That shouldn't be. The Venerable sword shouldn't have thoughts of its own. He suppressed his unruly emotions and stood wordlessly by Wenren E. They waited there for 10 days, until Baili Qingmiao finally arrived. Wenren E didn't mind. While the protagonist was traveling alone, she was sure to run into some unexpected situations and be delayed. That was quite normal. Baili Qingmiao, on the other hand, was rather embarrassed. Apologies, seniors. On the way here, I passed by a village cursed by ghosts. I was delayed for a few days to exorcise them, and failed to meet our agreement. A village cursed by ghosts? Wenren E was certain that this was the debut of love interest number 5, Baili Qingmiao's little disciple. This little disciple was originally a stillborn fetus. While Baili Qingmiao was exorcising ghosts, one of the evil spirits had actually not been dispersed and hid inside that fetus, filled with hate for her. 18 years later, he re-encountered Baili Qingmiao, who was now at the nascent soul stage, and took her as a master, waiting for a chance to eat her soul. Later, Baili Qingmiao's kind, honest, beautiful, and gentle nature led this ghost cultivator to reform and willingly become her disciple. Hating Wenzhao for causing his master to cry, he tried to assassinate him and was killed by him. After his death, he was exposed as a ghost cultivator, and the female villains took the opportunity to accuse Baili Qingmiao of colluding with evil. The reason he existed was probably to give Wenzhao a better excuse to mistreat the female lead. Wenren didn't really worry about these small details. None of these things would be a problem anyway if Baili Qingmiao didn't love Wenzhao. The three of them entered the ice plains. To let Baili Qingmiao find the snow flame on her own, Wenren put a tracking spell on her and told her to wander around randomly in the endless field of ice. He and Yin HANJIANG just had to keep an eye on her from afar. Baili Qingmiao's cultivation was low, and even with the flame feather cloak protecting her, she was still so cold her face was turning purple, struggling arduously through the frost and snow. On the other hand, Yin HANJIANG was at body unity stage and had drunk Wenren-E's blood, and Wenren-E also provided him with his own spiritual energy now and again. Even after several days, his face was still flushed, and his condition had also improved significantly. It was a sad comparison to make with Baili Qingmiao. Yin HANJIANG, watching Baili Qingmiao's movements, opened his mouth several times, wanting to ask something, but always held back. In this way, they tailed her for 5 months. As Baili Qingmiao endured the harshness of the ice plains, she managed to raise her cultivation to the peak of foundation establishment and would only need to use a core foundation cultivation manual to raise her stage. However, she found no trace of the snow flame. Wenren also didn't expect to waste this much time in the ice plains. Puzzled, he said, this shouldn't be. The snow flame is destined to belong to Baili Qingmiao. Why hasn't it appeared? He thought back to the story and realized that the time now aligned with the book's progression, just around the time Baili Qingmiao would have found Wenzhao sucked empty by Shu Yanyan and took him to find the cure. In the book, Baili Qingmiao hadn't had the flame feather cloak. Her limbs were frostbitten after 3 days of being in the ice plains, and all her spiritual energy was going towards protecting her Wenzhao as she crawled across the ice with him on her back. When she was on the verge of freezing to death, a ball of flame appeared before her. She reached for it with all her remaining strength and caught that flame, tears of relief flowing from her eyes. Could it be that she has to be near death to see the snow flame? Wenren mused. The Lord of Demons was an action-oriented man. With a thought, the flame feather cloak on Baili Qingmiao's body vanished and appeared in his hand. The merely foundation establishment girl was instantly left shivering from the cold. Seeing this, Yin HANJIANG opened his mouth again. Wenren saw his expression and said, "You've been holding off on saying something all this time. What is it? This venerable one orders you to say it." With Wenren-E's order, Yin HANJIANG was more at ease and said, "Doesn't the venerable like Baili Qingmiao? Why doesn't it seem like you like her at all? Why does it seem like you'd be fine with her freezing to death?" "Who told you I liked her?" Wenren felt this matter was very important to clarify. He didn't want Yin HANJIANG to misunderstand like in the book. He poked Yin HANJIANG in the forehead. "This venerable has deduced the workings of fate and realized I have a debt to Baili Qingmiao's previous incarnation for helping me enter the Tao. In this life, I have to help her ascend. That's why I helped her." "Now I see." For some reason, the weight was taken off of Yin HANJIANG's chest. He pointed to Baili Qingmiao and said, "But Miss Baili is going to freeze to death." "Not a problem," Wenren said. "There are so many cultivation paths in existence. If she dies, she can cultivate as a ghost." Okay. She doesn't necessarily need to cultivate the righteous path. Yin HANJIANG thought for a moment and nodded. The Venerable's words were reasonable, as always. All right, you guys, so we have reached the end of the reading for today. Let's go over my notes. So the first thing I want to say is I'm actually kind of glad that the main character, Wenren has some perspective, or at least this novel, Abuse of Love, has given him perspective. And I'm thinking specifically about Yin HANJIANG, because it's mentioned that he never paid attention to him before, never really noticed him, would just disregard him. But with the book reading 4 or 5 times, it helped him to see Yin HANJIANG in a new light and also even appreciate him and consider him. And so that's very nice. I'm thinking about the people who practice demonic arts and their personalities and everything like that, and he just doesn't fit the stereotypical book for that, and it's pretty interesting, but I like it. The other thing I want to say, since we're speaking about characters, I don't like Baili Qingmiao. Just hearing about her character thus far, I don't like her vibe. One thing I can't stand, well, there are many things we all can't stand, right? But one thing that really grinds my gears is an extremely jealous woman. Because at the end of the day, if you're in a relationship with someone, you have to trust that person. Now, I understand a lot of us may have certain backstories and stuff like that may cause us to feel certain ways and yada, yada, yada. But even with the way you feel, you also still need to be effectively communicative with your partner or the person that you're interested in, and not be so much as beaten down their throat. Thinking about the scenario that happened with Wenzhao and his Liu Shimei, and how she got so upset over that. And it's like, the man was just doing his duty. Like, come on, girl. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's doing some other stuff for Yanyan, but still, just in general, knowing that she gets, spiked or triggered over stuff like that, it's kind of annoying. So, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to like her at all throughout this story. We shall see. I wonder if this is one of those cases where in the book that he read, so many men fell in love with her, but she's not even really worthy of that love. No offense. We're all worthy of love, right? But we'll see. Let's see. The other thing I want to say, okay, Mahayana stage sounds really, really cool. The fact that he was able to use the essence of the earth to form chairs. I was like, wait, what? I want that ability, because sometimes I'm standing somewhere and I just need to sit down, but there are no chairs available. Anyway, that was really cool. Let's see. Wenzhao. This is just what my note says. Wenzhao. have some integrity, lol. Thinking about, it said like he honestly does like Baili Qingmiao, but with Shu Yanyan in the picture, it's just like, okay, yeah. And then like him feeling guilty about it, but then her basically saying, as long as no one knows. And he's like, you're right. As long as no one knows, yeah, this is all good. I was like, what? Sir, okay. So clearly you don't like Baili Qingmiao enough. So, whatever. Also, I kind of just want to know, like, are they together or not together? Like, is that something that he has officially established with her? Because right now, it seems like either they're officially together or Baili Qingmiao has just pronounced in her head that they're together and he just kind of goes along with what she's doing. Because even, in just real life, men do that. A woman will sit there and be thinking they're together, but he never said y'all were officially together. And so then if he goes and sleeps with someone else or does something, it's kind of like, oh, why did you do that? Da, 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 da. And it's like, well, So anyway, one thing I want to share with you all, because it is an expression in Mandarin, when I read it, I was like, hey, I know this one. And that was concerning Baili Qingmiao when she wanted to find a way to thank Wenren E for, what he had done for her. And it had mentioned that, a drop of water should be repaid by a spring. Like I said, that is an actual expression. And I'm going to say the expression. It's 滴水之恩当永光相报. So slowly. 滴水之恩, that's the first half. 当永光相报. So 滴水之恩当永光相报. 滴水之恩当永光相报. So again, I'm sure you guys can gather what that means. A drop of water should be repaid by a spring that's substantially much more water. So basically, one kind little favor should be repaid with like great kindness, not of equal measure, but of greater kindness. Now let's see, my last note, second to last note. I don't think Wenren is that bad at all, which I said at the top. But not only is he not bad being a demonic cultivator, he's also like really chill. He seems like my kind of guy. He seems like he has a good head on his shoulders and he just want to chill, but he'll face an issue if he sees it. I feel like he and I could hang in a room together and just like be doing our own thing and be totally cool. I don't really have men friends, but I'd want to be his friend. Next, going to my very last note. With him wondering why the snow flame has not come up yet and saying it's destined for her. Obviously, we all know what that means. Clearly, it's not destined for her. It must be destined for you, sir. I mean, like, at the end of the day, you're the one that wants it so you can help Yin HANJIANG. Which brings me to my next freaking point. Clearly, Yin HANJIANG does not just view himself as a sword. This man has to view himself, clearly he has more than just thoughts of being a sword in his mind, which we did read. He was like, no, I can't have these thoughts. Obviously the man is in love with Wenren E. Like, that has to be what it is, especially when Shu Yanyan was like, oh, do you like Baili Qingmiao? You want me to go get her for you? And he turned pale. I was like, got it. So you're in love with him. And he just doesn't know it yet. So now I'm like, okay, so is this the actual love interest? Because in the summary that I provided you all and the summary that I've seen, which is pretty much the same on every website I go to, it doesn't tell you who his love interest is. And so I just know people also like it's a slow burn. And I'm like, well, who the hell is he supposed to love? Because it's not going to be Baili Qingmiao. She's a girl. This is Danmei. So I'm like, okay, it can't be Wenzhao because he's a scumbag for real. No, it's not him. So it has to be Yin HANJIANG. And I'm just wondering, like, okay, like, when will this be made clear? At least to me, the reader, not necessarily to Wenren but when will the book like officially announce to us his feelings for Wenren And what was I gonna say? Oh, when will Wenren return his feelings? Because clearly it has to be him. After all, out of everything that he's read, there's only one person who he has concerned himself with now, and that is Yin HANJIANG. And he's, paying more attention to him, being more considerate of him, and it's saying, his heart moved and it never moves for anyone. And I'm like, okay, is it moving for him? Also, how old are these people? Because it's talking about them being around for 80 years, hundreds of years and stuff. I'm like, how old are y'all? Can I just get the age numbers? So anyway, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else to say. If you guys didn't see before, I do have a link in the description so you guys can actually read along with me if you want to do more than just listen. The other thing I want to say is thank you so much for bearing with me. I don't know if this lisp I have or like the weird acrobats I'm doing with my mouth will go away, but sometimes as I'm reading, I'm like, what the heck did I just say? And then I have to go back, or I'm reading and I'm like, I know that didn't sound like my normal self, but we're just going to let it ride. Like, I wish y'all could see the way I'm talking right now. It's, it's a bit much. Nevertheless, thank you all so much for sticking with me. And I'm sorry if sometimes my speaking sounds weird. I don't know how long this will last, if I'll ever get used to it, or if it'll be like a lisp that I just have for like the next 17 months. But we shall see. So yeah, if you guys have any questions for me in the comment section, please ask them as we approach the Q&A. But also, I just love hearing your thoughts about this particular novel. A lot of you seem very excited about it. I don't think I've seen this much attraction to one novel so quickly. Like, even in just the post about it before the first reading, everybody's like, oh yeah, I love this one. I love this one. I was like, oh yeah, y'all getting me pumped up. So thank you guys for getting me pumped up for魔尊也想知道, because I want to be pumped up, especially after Guardian. We gotta stay pumped. Anyway, let's not ramble on. Mari, what ainimen?